Yeah.
And it feels good to be back. Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert here on YouTube after taking a little bit of a break. As many of you know, we were out in Los Angeles just a few weeks ago. We spent a week out there. Beautiful, beautiful city. Had a blast out there, but came back home and immediately began dealing with some health issues. I had to go see a bunch of doctors and some issues that we're still dealing with a little bit today. So we're still working on getting fully healthy, still working on getting back to 100%, but I can promise you I do not plan on taking a long break again. I'm going to try to power through this and bring you guys some of the best college football news, predictions, analysis here on YouTube. Some of the best analysis in the country. So we don't plan on taking a long break again. We actually plan on starting this brand new series. You know, it's been a wild offseason in the world of college football, and especially within the coaching carousel. So we want to take a look at some of the biggest hires of this offseason. We want to take a look at these brand new coaches at these respective schools, and we're going to kind of look at their history, what to expect from them and their team in 2020, and then we're going to grade these coaches. We're going to grade these hires, give them a letter grade, A, B, C, D, or F, just like you were back in school. And like we said, it has been a wild offseason, especially within the coaching carousel. You know, we thought this carousel and all these coaching changes were going to be done about midway through January. We saw a couple schools finally piece together the rest of their staffs and piece together a couple of their last hires until February rolled around. And then at the beginning of February, Mark D'Antonio at Michigan State, the winningest head coach in Michigan State history, said, "I'm out." He said, "I'm bailing and I'm resigning," which left Michigan State, a team that has dominated the Big Ten for the majority of this past decade, open for a head coaching position. They went out and snagged Mel Tucker from Colorado, giving him an offer he could not refuse, which then left another Power 5 program in Colorado looking for a head coach after National Signing Day. So for both Michigan State and Colorado, a horrible, horrible position and horrible, horrible timing for both of those programs looking for a brand new head coach. So, I guess it couldn't have been as bad as Bob Stoops leaving in June right before the season started. Lincoln Riley, yes, doing fine. But nonetheless, we're going to take a look at these head coaching changes, and we should take a look first at Colorado. I can't think of a more appropriate way to start than with the most recent head coaching hire, and that would be Karl Dorrell. So as we mentioned, Mel Tucker left Colorado to go take the Michigan State job, and we'll touch on that one later. We'll touch on Mel Tucker later. A lot of people gave him some flack for leaving Colorado, for saying he was 100% committed to the Buffaloes and the program in Boulder, and then a few days later leaving for East Lansing. And like I said, we'll touch on that later. Right now, we focus on Karl Dorrell, who has plenty of coaching experience both at the college level and at the NFL level. He has actually spent all but one of the past 12 seasons coaching in the NFL, mostly coaching wide receivers. He spent this past year down in Miami coaching the Miami Dolphins wide receivers and was promoted to assistant head coach before he left to take this job over at Colorado. That 1 year that he did not coach in the NFL, whether he was spending it with the Jets or the Dolphins, the 1 year he did not was back in 2014. He was the offensive coordinator at the college ranks at Vanderbilt in the SEC, but unfortunately the Commodores went 3-9 and their offense only averaged 17.2 points per game. So Dorrell didn't have one of the better offenses in the SEC, had one of the worst probably in the entire nation that 1 year he spent with the Commodores and Derek Mason down in Nashville. So outside of that, he coached in the NFL. He's been spending the majority of the past decade doing that. He did have a head coaching stint at the college level, and you always want to try to get, especially at a Power 5 school, you look for guys that have prior head coaching experience. And I think anytime you can get a coach that has coached at the NFL level in any capacity, that is a huge get. And then getting a guy that maybe has any sort of previous head coaching experience at the college level is extremely beneficial as well. Dorrell kind of gave Colorado the best of both worlds. He's got NFL experience, he's got head coaching experience, and he had head coaching experience in the Pac-12. Back then, it was actually the Pac-10, and back then, Colorado had yet to move to the Pac-10 or the Pac-12, but still, he was the head coach at UCLA, so he's familiar with that western region, that western side of the country. He went 35-27 during his time with the Bruins, where he coached from 2003 to 2007. That did include a 10-2 record in 2005, so he is capable of producing some solid teams here. Dorrell, in that 2005 season, shared co-Pac-10 Coach of the Year honors with then USC head coach Pete Carroll, who now, of course, is the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. So he produced solid teams at UCLA, but got fired at the conclusion of that 2007 season. Outside of the 10-2 mark in 2005, was just mediocre during his time with the Bruins. Wasn't reaching those standards, but right now neither is Chip Kelly. Once again, a story and a topic for another time. So Dorrell comes in here to Colorado, little bit of prior head coaching experience in the Pac-10 at the collegiate level, has been offensive coordinator at the collegiate level, and has plenty of work with offenses within the NFL. So you would expect maybe a solid offense to come out of Colorado, maybe not necessarily this year, but maybe down the road if the Buffaloes can just give them time, if the fan base and the administration can give him time. The problem for Colorado is, and we'll get to their grade here in a second, we'll give them the grade for the hire of Karl Dorrell. The problem is that he clearly was not their number one choice. And you hate to say that. You hate to say, man, I wasn't your number one choice. I wasn't even on your list that early on. But it's understandable. Colorado was put in a very, very bad situation. It was a very unfortunate circumstances with the timing. I thought Mel Tucker did a solid job in 2019. Yes, they went 5-7, but I think had he stayed there for a while, he could have gotten Colorado somewhere. I think he was building something there. He just was given an offer at Michigan State that he couldn't refuse. Once again, something we'll touch on later in this series. But Colorado, their number one choice was probably Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator for the now Super Bowl champions Kansas City Chiefs. We've seen how well he has done as offensive coordinator for the Chiefs, and he had Colorado ties as well. He was a legendary running back, a beast at Colorado back in the 90s. So you look at that, see his history, his connection to the city, his connection to the school, how well he has done at the next level. Would have been a great head coach for the Buffaloes, but he's obviously got a very good situation right now in Kansas City. He's got a great quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, and they just won a Super Bowl, so you can't really blame him for leaving, and he might be holding out for a potential head coaching job in the NFL years down the road. Colorado also looked at Steve Sarkisian. Of course, we know that he has ties out into that western area as well, having coached at USC, having coached down in the south with Alabama with Nick Saban. So obviously some ties at some elite programs. May not have made a bad coach for Colorado, but he turned the job down. Troy Calhoun, the Air Force head coach who beat Colorado just this past season, he turned the job down. They also looked into BRET, the former Wisconsin and Arkansas coach who is now on the staff for the New York Giants and previously was on the staff for the New England Patriots. So that's 4 candidates right there that Colorado had their eye on and maybe even extended the job to, that turned the job down. And once again, you can't help but think that timing had a way with this. That timing played a major factor in these guys' decisions of turning down the job or not wanting to be interested in removing their name from candidacy for the Colorado head coaching position. So Karl Dorrell, though, even though he gets promoted to assistant head coach, he says, I want it. I want the job, and he is now the new head man in Colorado, where he did coach and was on the staff back in the 90s as well. So does have some ties, not just to that region, but also to the school as well. When you look at the 2020 outlook here, guys, though, you look at Dorrell, what to expect from Colorado in 2020. Don't expect much. Once again, I thought had Mel Tucker stayed, he might have been able to build something. I think Colorado might have been able to go places with him further down the road. Don't expect that right off the bat with Karl Dorrell because they lose their quarterback in Steven Montez, and they lose one of the greatest wide receivers in the country this past season in Laviska Shenault. At least he was when he was fully healthy. Well, Shenault going to be maybe one of the earlier draft picks for a wide receiver, one of the earlier wide receivers taken in this upcoming NFL draft. Montez probably not, but still an experienced quarterback that the Buffaloes now do not have. What they do have should be a more experienced defense. Colorado's defense was not great in 2020, allowing 31.8 points per game, but they're going to be much more experienced coming into this season, so expect those numbers to improve, and you might see a Colorado team that you thought was going to be led by their defense last year, as Mel Tucker is a defensive-minded coach, might be a little more defensive-led in 2020 with an offensive-minded coach in Karl Dorrell. When you're looking at their schedule, you look at possible wins. Of course, we're not going to predict now. We save those for the summer. But Colorado does have a very difficult non-conference game on the road against Texas A&M, a former Big 12 matchup there, but a Texas A&M team that is going to improve greatly and be very dangerous in the SEC. They do have to travel to USC, Stanford, and Washington. So that's 4 games that right there that I'm sure many people are expecting Colorado to lose. And we are not going to go on record and say they're going to lose those games, but 4 very difficult road games right there for Colorado to go on with a home game against Oregon, who could be one of the better teams in the country and certainly in the Pac-12 this season, and other Pac-12 opponents. So something to kind of watch out for. It could be a tough year for Karl Dorrell in year 1. I don't expect a whole lot from Colorado in his first season. But once again, as you do with any new head coach, and as you do under these circumstances, you have to give them time. You have to give him time. So what would we grade this hire? What would we grade the hire of Karl Dorrell to Colorado? We're going to give it a C-. Couldn't be that hard on him. Couldn't give him a D. Certainly weren't going to give him an S, an F, because you do have a coach here that was mediocre as a head coach back in the early 2000s. And you do have a coach that spent many, many years in the NFL. Once again, any NFL coaching experience, whether it's as a head coach or an assistant, can go a long way. And once again, this was not a bad hire considering the circumstances. Had this been the hire that Colorado landed and they had had time since November to land a new head coach, maybe we would have given them a worse grade. But considering the circumstances, the administration did a very good job of quickly getting on top of their game. And as soon as Mel Tucker departed, they quickly found their replacement for him. And they found one that had ties to the region, that had ties to the school, and does have experience. So Dorrell to Colorado. Let's see how it all plays out. The schedule not looking bright for them, but for right now, we give Colorado a C- on this hire. Let's see how it translates in 2020 and certainly the years coming forward. So guys, thank you so much for watching. We are so glad to be back, and we have plenty of more content coming your way. More coaching change analysis, quarterback transfers, big-time games to look forward to in week 1. It's never too early to look ahead, so plenty more coming your way here at the Gridiron Expert. So thank you so much. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on the Gridiron Expert.